What if I told you that the difference between the life you want and the life you're living isn't talent, isn't luck, isn't even opportunity? It's the story you tell yourself before anything happens. Most people wait for proof before they believe. They wait for success before they feel confident. They wait for certainty before they take the step. But here's the truth. The people who win don't wait. They decide. They decide that no matter what happens, they will find a way. They decide that every obstacle is a lesson, not a verdict. They decide that even when things fall apart, something better is being built. And they act as if everything always works out for them. Not because life is easy, not because they're lucky, but because they understand something most people don't. Your mindset isn't just how you see the world, it's how the world responds to you. Think about it. Two people face the same failure. One says, "This proves I'm not good enough." The other says, "This is training." Same event, different story, different future. You don't become confident after success. You become successful after confidence. Confidence isn't loud. It isn't arrogant. It's quiet certainty. It's waking up and saying, "I don't know how this will work out, but I know it will." And then showing up anyway. You see, leadership doesn't begin when others follow you. Leadership begins when you follow yourself, even when no one else believes. Even when the results aren't visible yet. Even when fear is loud. Because fear will always speak first. Fear says, "Wait until you're ready. Wait until it's safe. Wait until you're perfect." But growth doesn't wait. Opportunity doesn't wait. Life doesn't wait. So you don't wait either. You act. You speak up. You apply. You start. You fail. You learn. You repeat. Not because you're guaranteed success, but because you're committed to progress. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop needing things to work out is the moment they start working out. Why? Because when you stop clinging to outcomes, you start focusing on effort. You start focusing on character. You start focusing on consistency. And consistency, not motivation, is what changes lives. Motivation fades. Feelings change. Circumstances shift. But commitment? Commitment stays. You don't need more confidence. You need more follow-through. Because belief without action is just hope. But belief with action? That's momentum. And momentum changes everything. So when you walk into a room, walk like you belong. When you face a challenge, face it like it's shaping you. When you fail, fail like someone who's learning, not losing. Act as if everything always works out for you. Not because it always will, but because you will. Because no matter what happens, you will adapt. You will grow. You will rise. And that mindset, that decision, that identity is what turns ordinary people into extraordinary leaders. Not someday. Not when it's easy. Not when it's safe. Today. Now. Here. Act as if everything always works out for you. And then become the kind of person who makes it true. Your mindset shapes your outcomes more than any external circumstance ever could. Most people believe their life is a result of what happens to them. But in reality, life is largely a result of what they believe about what happens to them. Two people can experience the same event, the same setback, the same opportunity, and walk away with completely different futures simply because they chose to see it differently. One sees a closed door. The other sees a redirection. One sees proof of failure. The other sees preparation for something greater. This is because your brain is constantly searching for evidence to support the story you already believe. If you believe the world is against you, your mind will collect proof of every rejection, every delay, every disappointment. But if you believe the world is working with you, your mind will search for lessons, growth, and hidden opportunity. The event doesn't change. The interpretation does. And that interpretation shapes your actions. Your actions shape your habits. Your habits shape your life. When you wake up believing that things work out for you, you move differently. You speak differently. You take chances other people avoid. You apply for opportunities others assume they won't get. You stay in the game longer when others quit early. Not because you are fearless, but because you trust that even if you fall, You will land somewhere better than where you started. That trust becomes your advantage. People often confuse mindset with positivity. But mindset is not pretending everything is perfect. It is choosing to believe that even when things are imperfect, they are still useful. That every obstacle is information. That every delay is direction. That every loss carries a lesson. This belief removes the fear of failure because failure no longer means the end. It simply means feedback. And when failure becomes feedback, you stop avoiding it and start using it. Your mindset also shapes how others experience you. People are drawn to certainty. They are inspired by those who walk with quiet confidence, who remain steady when things go wrong, who do not collapse under pressure. Not because they always have answers, but because they trust themselves to find them. That trust creates influence. That influence creates leadership. And leadership, in its purest form, begins internally, long before anyone else follows. Most people wait for evidence before they believe in themselves. They wait for success before they feel worthy. They wait for validation before they feel confident. But confidence is not the result of success. Confidence is the cause of success. You don't become bold after things work out. Things work out because you decided to be bold first. Every breakthrough in your life begins with a belief shift. A shift from, why is this happening to me? To what is this preparing me for? A shift from, I can't, to unlearning. A shift from, this is the end, to this is the beginning of something else. That shift may be invisible to others, but it changes everything for you. Your mindset is not something you're born with. It is something you practice. Every thought you repeat becomes a belief. Every belief you reinforce becomes an identity. And every identity you live from becomes your destiny. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your beliefs. So if you want a different outcome, you don't start by changing your circumstances. You start by changing your story. You start by choosing a story where setbacks sharpen you, where challenges grow you, where uncertainty strengthens you, and where everything, no matter how it looks, is working in your favor. Confidence is not something you wake up with one day. It is not something that suddenly appears when everything goes right. It is not something you receive from others. Confidence is a decision to move before you feel ready, a decision to speak before your voice feels steady, a decision to act before your hands stop shaking. Most people wait for confidence to show up first, but confidence does not come before action. It comes because of action. Think about every confident person you admire. They were not born fearless. They were not immune to doubt. They were not free from hesitation. What separates them is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move in spite of it. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing to act while fear is present. And every time you act despite fear, your confidence grows a little stronger. Feelings are unreliable. They change with mood, energy, environment, and circumstances. If you wait to feel confident before you act, you may wait forever. But if you act first, your feelings will eventually follow your behavior. This is how confidence is built, through repetition. You do the hard thing once, and it feels uncomfortable. You do it again, and it feels manageable. You do it enough times, and it becomes who you are. Confidence is not loud. It does not demand attention. It does not seek approval. Real confidence is quiet. It is the calm assurance that no matter what happens, you will figure it out. It is not believing you will never fail. It is believing you can recover when you do. That belief changes everything. It allows you to take risks without being reckless. It allows you to speak honestly without being arrogant. It allows you to stand firm without being rigid. Most people avoid action because they fear embarrassment, rejection, or failure. But what they are really afraid of is not the event itself. It is the meaning they assign to it. They believe failure means they are not capable. They believe rejection means they are not worthy. They believe mistakes mean they are not enough. But failure is not a verdict. It is data. Rejection is not a judgment. It is redirection. Mistakes are not proof of inadequacy. They are proof of effort. When you decide to act anyway, You begin to separate your identity from your outcomes. You stop saying, "I failed," and you start saying, "That didn't work." You stop saying, "I'm not good enough," and you start saying, "I'm getting better." This shift protects your confidence because your confidence is no longer dependent on results. It is rooted in effort. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your confidence increases. Every time you show up when it's uncomfortable, your confidence strengthens. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, your confidence deepens. You do not build confidence by waiting for the perfect moment. You build it by honoring your word when the moment is imperfect. Confidence is also not about knowing the outcome. It is about trusting your ability to handle the outcome. It is trusting that if things go well, you will move forward. And if things go wrong, you will grow forward. Either way, you move. The most powerful form of confidence is not, "I will succeed." It is, "I will be okay no matter what happens." That belief frees you. It removes the pressure to be perfect. It removes the fear of failure. It removes the need for validation. And when you are free from those, you are unstoppable. You don't wait to feel confident to take the step. You take the step to become confident. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is not a stop sign. Failure is not the end of the road. Failure is part of the road. Most people treat failure like a verdict, as if one mistake defines their entire future. But in reality, failure is simply information. It tells you what didn't work, not who you are. Every successful person has failed more times than most people have even tried. The difference is not that they avoided failure. The difference is that they refused to let failure define them. They understood that every setback was shaping them, refining them, strengthening them. What looks like a breakdown from the outside is often a breakthrough in disguise. Failure hurts because it touches ego. It challenges identity. It threatens comfort. But growth has always lived outside comfort. You cannot become stronger without resistance. You cannot become wiser without mistakes. You cannot become resilient without adversity. Every skill you admire in others, discipline, patience, leadership, courage, was forged through difficulty, not ease. Most people fear failure because they attach meaning to it. They believe failure means they are not smart enough, not capable enough, not worthy enough. But failure is not a measure of worth. It is a measure of effort. It is evidence that you tried, that you took a risk, that you stepped into uncertainty. And that is where growth lives. Failure is a teacher, but only if you are willing to learn. If you avoid it, you avoid the lesson. If you deny it, you repeat it. If you blame others for it, you remain stuck in it. But if you own it, examine it, and extract wisdom from it, it becomes fuel instead of a burden. There are two kinds of pain in life: the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. Discipline hurts temporarily. Regret hurts permanently. Failure, when used correctly, saves you from regret. It shows you what is possible. It shows you what needs work. It shows you who you need to become. Most breakthroughs are preceded by breakdowns. Most clarity comes after confusion. Most confidence is born from moments of doubt. Failure strips away illusions. It removes shortcuts. It exposes weaknesses. And in doing so, it gives you the opportunity to rebuild stronger than before. The problem is not failure. The problem is quitting. The problem is deciding that one loss is enough to stop trying. The problem is allowing temporary defeat to become permanent surrender. Success is not built on a straight line. It is built on persistence. It is built on adaptation. It is built on refusing to stop. Every failure asks a question. Are you willing to continue? Are you willing to adjust? Are you willing to grow? Those who succeed are not the ones who never fall. They are the ones who refuse to stay down. Failure also builds humility. It reminds you that you are not finished. It keeps you teachable. It keeps you open. It keeps you hungry. Without failure, success becomes arrogance. Without struggle, progress becomes entitlement. Without setbacks, growth becomes shallow. Failure does not make you weak. Avoiding failure makes you weak. Playing small to stay safe makes you weak. Growth demands risk, and risk demands the willingness to fail. When you stop seeing failure as an enemy and start seeing it as a guide, everything changes. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this preparing me for?" You stop running from discomfort and start using it. You stop fearing mistakes and start collecting lessons. Failure is not the end of your story. It is a chapter, a necessary chapter, a shaping chapter, a chapter that builds the strength, wisdom, and resilience required for the chapters that follow. Leadership does not begin with a title, a position, or a group of people following you. Leadership begins within. It begins with how you think, how you act, how you respond when no one is watching. Before anyone trusts you, you must trust yourself. Before anyone follows you, you must follow your own values. And before you can influence others, you must first influence your own behavior. Most people think leadership is about control, but real leadership is about responsibility. Responsibility for your actions, responsibility for your attitude, responsibility for your growth. You do not become a leader by being in charge. You become a leader by taking charge of yourself, your habits, your choices, your standards. These are the foundation of your influence. People are not inspired by what you say. They are inspired by what you consistently do. They watch how you handle pressure. They watch how you treat others. They watch how you respond to failure. And from those observations, they decide whether you are worth following. Leadership is not built in moments of comfort. It is built in moments of challenge. When you trust yourself, you move with clarity. You make decisions with confidence, not because you know the outcome, but because you trust your judgment. You do not hesitate out of fear. You do not freeze out of doubt. You take responsibility for the results, whether they are good or bad. That responsibility builds credibility, and credibility builds influence. Self-trust does not mean believing you are always right. It means believing you are willing to learn when you are wrong. It means being honest about your weaknesses while remaining committed to growth. It means listening without becoming defensive. It means adjusting without losing direction. This balance between confidence and humility is what makes leadership sustainable. Most people want to lead others, but few are willing to lead themselves. They want influence without discipline. They want respect without consistency. They want authority without accountability. But leadership without self-leadership is fragile. It collapses under pressure. It becomes reactive instead of intentional. It becomes loud instead of effective. Self-leadership requires standards. Standards for how you speak. Standards for how you work. Standards for how you treat others. Standards for how you handle setbacks. These standards are not imposed by others. They are chosen by you. And every time you honor them, you reinforce your identity. You become someone others can rely on, not because you promise, but because you perform. Leadership is not about being perfect. It is about being consistent. People do not need you to be flawless. They need you to be reliable. They need you to be honest. They need you to be steady. And that steadiness comes from internal alignment, when your actions match your values, and your values match your vision. When you lead yourself well, you create safety for others. They feel safe to speak, safe to try, safe to fail, safe to grow. This psychological safety is the foundation of strong teams, strong cultures, and strong communities. And it does not come from authority. It comes from example. You cannot ask others to believe in something you do not live. You cannot ask others to be disciplined if you are inconsistent. You cannot ask others to be courageous if you avoid discomfort. Leadership is not taught by instruction. It is taught by demonstration. Every time you choose integrity over convenience, you lead. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you lead. Every time you choose responsibility over blame, you lead. Leadership is not something you turn on at work and turn off at home. It is a way of being. It is a daily practice. When you lead yourself first, others naturally follow, not because they are forced to, but because they trust you. And trust is the true currency of leadership. Consistency beats talent because talent is potential, but consistency is performance. Talent may open the door, but consistency is what keeps you in the room. Many people are gifted, skilled, and intelligent, yet never reach their potential because they rely on bursts of motivation instead of steady commitment. Meanwhile, others with average ability outperform them simply because they show up again and again, no matter how they feel. Talent gives you a head start. Consistency gives you endurance. And in the long run, endurance always wins. Success is rarely the result of one big moment. It is the result of many small actions done repeatedly over time. What looks like overnight success is usually years of unseen effort. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. It rises when things are exciting and disappears when things are hard. If your progress depends on motivation, your progress will be inconsistent. But if your progress depends on discipline, your progress will be inevitable. Discipline does not wait for the right mood. It acts regardless of mood. Consistency builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you reinforce the belief that you are dependable. That self-trust becomes confidence. That confidence becomes momentum. And momentum changes how you see yourself and what you believe is possible. Many people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They chase quick results and become discouraged when they don't see immediate progress. But consistency works quietly. It compounds. A small improvement every day may seem insignificant, but over time, it creates massive change. 1% better each day does not feel dramatic, but over a year, it transforms everything. Consistency also removes pressure. When you commit to showing up regularly, you stop obsessing over outcomes. You stop demanding perfection. You focus on process instead of performance. You focus on effort instead of results. This shift makes progress sustainable. It turns growth into a lifestyle rather than a phase. Talent without consistency creates frustration. You know what you're capable of, but you don't reach it. You feel potential, but you don't see results. That gap creates self-doubt. Consistency closes that gap. It turns ability into achievement. It turns intention into reality. Consistency is not about doing everything perfectly. It is about doing the right things repeatedly. It is about returning to your standards even after you fall short. It is about recommitting every time you drift. It is about progress, not perfection. You do not need extraordinary talent to build an extraordinary life. You need ordinary actions done extraordinarily well. You need to show up when it's boring. You need to show up when it's uncomfortable. You need to show up when no one is watching. That is where consistency is built. Most people quit not because they are incapable, but because they are inconsistent. They stop when it gets hard. They stop when results are slow. They stop when excitement fades. But success belongs to those who continue, not when it's easy, but especially when it's not. Consistency also creates identity. When you do something repeatedly, it becomes who you are. You don't just exercise, you become someone who trains. You don't just study, you become someone who learns. You don't just work, you become someone who builds. And identity is more powerful than willpower. Talent may impress. Consistency transforms. Talent may inspire. Consistency sustains. Talent may start the journey. Consistency finishes it.